Thank you for tuning in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the only station giving you double the inspiration and information, and you're listening to Art Meets Life, and I'm your host, LJ Bowens, spoken word artist, author. You know what? I forgot to mention that I also do a panel. I'm a panelist at Comic-Con events. So, you know, I'm a nerd, a black nerd at that, and I'm very proud of that, you know, henceforth poetry and games and stuff like that, you know, because it's good stuff, especially because Street Fighter V just released some of my favorite characters. But, you know, that's a whole nother discussion. That's video games. We're talking about poetry, and I'm excited because we have our first guest in the studio. If I had like a button to push like the crowd noise, I will push it. So I'll just like act like I'm the crowd when I call you. So
reggae horn.
Yeah. So, but you know, your guest for tonight, definitely one of the most phenomenal poets I know. Definitely one of my best friends. We actually featured on a podcast out of South Carolina called Contribute Your Verse. So to actually have him as the first guest on Art Meets Life in the studio edition is actually pretty dope. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what y'all put your heads together for Jay Ward. Yeah.
I appreciate you for having me. This is great.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Same old. It's funny hearing you talk about being a black nerd and being proud of it, because we can be proud now.
Definitely.
When I was coming up, we had to be kind of in the corners a little bit.
You're
or
right.
Stuffed in a locker.
Now look at us. We doing dope stuff. So
the world
real
is
quick,
ours.
so this is a segue. So if you guys ever get on YouTube, I want y'all to look up this poem that he did with a poet by the name of Ed Mabry. Think about the Black Stormtrooper. Like if you've never seen a poem dealing with the Black Stormtrooper and the truth behind it and everything, it's a phenomenal poem by phenomenal poets. It's dope. Jay Ward, it is good to have you in the building once again, man. And you know, we're gonna get into this interview because I'm thankful that you're here. We've done interviews together before, but I don't think we've done it on a radio format when I'm actually the host and you're the guest. So let's start off with some easy questions before we get into like the meet and greet and everything.
Always good. Yeah,
so
let's do that.
Tell us, are you originally from Charlotte or are you like a transplant to Charlotte?
I was born in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Okay.
I moved to a very small town where my father grew up in Rich Square, North Carolina, which is eastern North Carolina, and I was raised there. And then I moved to the Baltimore, D.C. area for about 13 years, and then I moved back down here in 2006.
Okay. So what ended up when you have to come back here in 2006? Like what brought you back?
The cost of housing.
That's a good. That's a very good reason.
I had one of those instant add water families where I all of a sudden was raising 3 kids and had a mother-in-law as well in the house, and we needed to expand. And it was just easier and cheaper to get housing down here than in the Maryland area.
Okay, sense. Definitely makes sense, especially from a financial standpoint. So, you know what? Let's get to a question that's probably burning everybody because it burns all people that want to know about artists. Like, what got you interested in? I don't want to say poetry, but let's just talk about artistry in general. What got you interested in artistry to begin with?
I feel like every artist's answer is probably the same. I could not separate myself from it. I think for me, it was when I was in elementary school and hip hop became, you know, as big as it started to become in the 80s and late 90s or early 90s. And that sparked my love for words and for writing, for creativity. And then that combined with learning about the Harlem Renaissance period just put me full-fledged into writing, whether it was short stories or raps or poems. I didn't start performing until maybe 7-8 years ago.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it's not been very long that I started performing, and I've only been slamming competitively on a national level for 3 years.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So, like,
4 years.
So do you remember the first poem and open mic that you attended that really got you motivated? Like, because everybody has that first time they do everything, but then they don't like how they sound, so they continue to go back. So what was that first poem? What was that first
I've got
mic?
2, because when I was in Maryland, I joined this this group of writers, and it was it was all women and me because they wanted one man, so I was the quota. And I got in and was just blown away by it. And then we all went to an open mic as a group. So I did this poem that really had to do with my heritage as being a mixed person. Got a really, really good response from it. I was like, oh, this is great. And when I moved here, I stayed away from it for a little while. And when I went to my first open mic, what poem was that? Actually, I think it was the same poem. I think I took that same poem to an open mic here and met CP Mays and JC and Danny and all of them. And I started getting into spoken word performance more so that I had self-published a book by that time. So I was really trying to figure out how to read my book better if I did author events. So I went to spoken word events thinking I was going to learn how to perform, how I was going to learn how to give life to my words. And I ended up learning more about writing than I ever did before, because we just have phenomenal writers in the city. And slam, people have been begging me to slam for a while, and I didn't really start until 2014, 2015.
All right.
Slam.
So we're going to definitely get into slam, but first what I want to do is I want to take a little break so we can get like a poem or two just like play so people can you know what I'm saying? Because I want to, get everybody too much at one time. So what we're going to do is going to take a little poetry break real quick, but we're going to come back with the phenomenal Jay Ward here at Art Meets Life here at WDRB Media, the voice of the community.
So this is the Beautiful Mistake album. It's taking you through some mistakes that I made in the past couple of years, and most of them been relationship mistakes. So I had to learn the hard way that in a lot of relationships, you have to learn to like the flaws of the person that you're with. And if you don't learn to like them, you at least got to learn to accept them in order to keep the relationship tolerable. They poets, they write the love poems about how they love her so much, look in the eyes, see sun, moon, and stars, and that ain't what you see when you look into the eyes of your loved one. Actually, love gets kind of ugly at times, as she said before. So this is what real love looks like. Real love is when I look to the left in the morning as she wake up. With her messy hair, oversized tee, no makeup, skin full of oil, coal in her eye, unmatched socks, and her pajamas got this big old hole in the thigh. Now, she wouldn't be caught like this in the public eye. Of course, she'd rather impress those strangers in the street than get fly, because the strangers may find this appearance unusual. I learned to find it outright beautiful. I mean, even from the belly, I see her try and tuck in after every meal. It is more than a sight to see. It is a feeling to feel. It reminds me of rolling your windows down because the AC is off in the cool. She is for those who prefer the beach over the pool, and only my eyes see past her disguise. I see the truth in the night. You see daytime lies, but I love everything about her. From the way she murders the dinner plate to them big drawers she be wearing to the slob she leaves on the pillowcase. She is beautiful. She's beautiful when she's jazzy and beautiful when she's nasty. So whether her hands crusty, arms musky, or feet ashy, you know she has to be something tight to death for me to be so impressed by her natural self, and I want to wake up every morning to that morning breath. I want to put a ring on the fourth finger on her left hand, because she could not be more adored by the next man, and I'll pray that I'll never be her ex, and I realize she is a reflection of me. Therefore, she's always an ever-loving sight to see. It means she can do no wrong. Means I'm content with her. Means there's no doubt that in this lifetime I was meant for her. You can tell that I love her from the skin to the core. I go pick up her dirty laundry from the floor. She can scratch, she can fart, she can burp, she can snore. She can even go to the bathroom with a wide open door. Now that's love. And she is the only one I share this feeling with. So if this is what real love feels like, I am feeling it, because she is beautiful. Beautiful when she's jazzy and beautiful when she's nasty. So whether her hands crusty, arms musky, or feet ashy, I know most strangers may find this appearance unusual, but I've learned to find it outright beautiful.
If he is a Muslim, your task is easy. Call him a terrorist, nothing more. We will ask no questions when you lift his turban as flag while stumbling around an uncomfortable name. Keep silent when you put his Quran to the flame. This is what we do with faith here. Make a death sentence out of scripture. Say jihad enough and people forget words like inquisition and crusade. Just look at the brown of him. A sun-scorched desert poised perfect for retaliation. The way his beard makes a secret of his mouth, further proof he cannot be trusted. Post his picture on CNN. We will see the Twin Towers fall again in his pupils. Watch tears floating like rubble to make a ground zero of his chin. If he is a Muslim, the work is done for you. A bit more involved if he is not. The next best culprit, of course, is a black man with hardened eyes and absent grin. We will ask no questions when you lift a photograph of his friends, each with their own uncomfortable name to use as a backdrop of evidence for any further accusations. I mean, this is what we do with perception here. Take a color and make it criminal. Say hoodlum enough and people forget a group of boys can be any other thing. Just look at the brown of him. A mahogany wind that whispers violent street. The smooth of his stature, further proof that he is beyond your reach. Post a video on YouTube or hear LA riot in his speech. A firestorm of window crash beneath that hue of ebony. If he is a black man, we have already posed him angry enough for this. perhaps even still, he could be Latino, an unknown country in the roll of his tongue. We will ask no questions when you lift his citizenship without even bothering to mention his name, to use as a reminder that he shouldn't be here in the first place. I mean, this is what we do with the land here. Draw lines in the sand and call that ownership. Say illegal enough and people forget the crime of manifest destiny. Look at the brown of him. A riverbed current beneath the midday sun. A family fortune constructed on the landscape of drug money. Post a soundbite on Fox News. We'll watch him take away our jobs. If he is Latino, he is probably foreign enough for this. But if he is a mild-mannered student at the top of his class, suit and tie with the promise of better things, the American dream glowing beneath the pallor of his skin, if he is a white boy, well, we will hush truth in the quiet of our fear. He must have been bullied. It must be a stress response, something broken in the parenting, because people like him don't do things like this. They don't blow up buildings in Oklahoma, or open fire in public schools, or invite their friends to dinner to watch another man hang and burn. They do not show up at a midnight showing to prove how dark a night can get. This boy is American. You said the other is what we should fear. You said every killer, the color of innocence, is by nature innocent still, while the brown boy decomposing must have brought it on himself. Antonio Montez fit the description. You hear Shahada, history with police. Von Myers was no angel with no weapon, no trial, no justice. If he is a person of color, just call him gone and nothing more.
Welcome back to Art Meets Life. I'm your host, LJ Bowens, and we're here at WDRB Media, the voice of the community. And if you guys are just tuning in, you missed the first little part of our interview with our guest, our first guest, because, you know, we got to make this a big thing. Our first guest, Jay Ward, and we were talking about his upbringing in the art and the poetry world. So he ended off talking about slam. And if you guys aren't familiar with poetry slam, it's one of the biggest things that's going on in the world right now. You have so many events dedicated to slam, festivals dedicated to slam, but a lot of y'all may not know what slam is. And slam is a competition where you have poets compete, have 5 random judges, and they're judged on a 0.0 to a 10.0 decimal scale. You got to do your poems within 3 minutes with a 10-second grace period, depending on if you're using traditional format, but a lot of them changes. But we're not going to get into all the mechanics of all that. What we're going to ask our feature is, what was it that made you want to transition from like trying to get better as far as reading your poems and performing them better to wanting to transition a little bit into slam?
Again, there's just phenomenal talent in the city. CP Mays is not here anymore. He's in Houston, but hearing what he did on open mics and hearing what he did in slams, hearing what Ed Mabry does, hearing what Blues did, those were things that motivated me to say, wow, that the level of creativity and writing and performance that goes into crafting something like that intrigued me. It really called out to my creative spirit. So,
and you said you've been only doing it. How long you been slamming? So I know you said you've been doing it like a little bit freshly since, what you say, about 7 years? I've
been performing for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
I first started slamming in 2014, so
okay.
that would be 5 years, right? Four.
Four.
Well,
depending on
if you count the actual year, I think it's 5.
Carry the 1 divided by 2.
Yeah,
not a problem. So, what has been a memorable memory with you doing slam?
I think my most outstanding memory, interestingly, is a poem that I don't perform anymore. But in IWIPS, or the Individual World Poetry Slam in D.C. in 2015, I did a poem where I spoke about rape culture from a father's standpoint, right? And after the poem, a young woman approached me, and she was kind of standing off to the side, being respectful because I was having a conversation. But I noticed her, and I was like, excuse me, everything all right? And she started telling me how she was estranged from her father, and that's all she really said, and that's all I needed to hear. And I just said, "Can I give you a hug?" And she was like, "I was gonna ask you, but I didn't want to seem creepy." And we just hugged there, and that was it. And I think that was the most rewarding thing ever. And I don't do that poem anymore for a very specific reason, but the power of poetry, I think, is encapsulated there in that experience, that this person just happened to come to this event, and I just happened to do this poem, and it touched her specifically. We had a kind of a small conversation in each other's ears during that hug, and I won't say all of it, but one of it was she needed to feel in the embrace of her father. Like, she asked me, was the poem true? And I said yes, and I needed to feel the embrace of her father. And I think poetry, this is probably a larger conversation, but poetry today versus poetry 100 years ago, 200 years ago, it's all the same. It's all living. Right? When we get wrapped up into whether it's a dead language or whether it is something that's taught in school and we were bored by it, that's not the point. Like, poetry has always been a living language during the time that people digested it. So right now, the poets that I hold in highest esteem, a lot of them are slam poets or performance poets, as well as page poets, because the word is alive. Like, poetry is alive, and the effects that it has on people is alive, and we can't discount that. It's like any other art. Without art, without poetry, without those things, you take that away and humanity is lost, right? And I think that experience probably encapsulates that me more than anything.
You said a mouthful.
I did. I'm sorry.
No. Don't apologize. It's good that you broke it down that way, because the next question I actually want to bring up, I think we got time for before you got to take our last break, is everything you learned from slam, everything you done with slam poetry, even being on a team with slam poetry. A lot of people don't also know that you're also a coach for the youth slam team here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So could you speak upon that real briefly?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I was approached by Terry Creech, who started Slam Charlotte. He wanted to start a youth version of Slam Charlotte. So he founded it, and he got myself and Jessica Keene to kind of help coach and bring those kids together. That has had more of a profound effect on me as a slam artist, as a slammer, I guess, in teaching them the things that are the right way to do it. And it shows me that there's hope for the culture. There are complaints about slam culture, and I think being that actively involved in the next generation coming up in it and seeing them embrace it, and not only embrace the poems and the performance and the competition, but embrace the culture of what poetry really is, as opposed to just trying to get points and just trying to win a championship. Embracing that culture of how it can help people, how it helps us first, and then we can take it and help other people with it.
Definitely. So what we're going to do, guys, real quick, we're going to take a quick break, but definitely stay tuned in. We're here at Art Meets Life. I'm your host, LJ Bowens, and we have Jay Ward in the building. And remember, you are tuned in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, and we'll be right back.
I was brought to this land an unfreed man. Often told that I couldn't when I knew that I can, and I did that man's work while I was beaten and whipped. They said I had a big forehead and some jumbo lips, but see, I knew I was great. I wouldn't go to my grave with the American history of a fool or a slave, so I learned how to read. I learned how to write. I learned I could be freed if I learned how to fight, and I'm great, y'all. So I can't be a slave no more. So I got my boots and rifle and went out to war. I feel like I'm great because I believed in us, because I was so tired of sitting at the back of that bus, so I marched down the street until you treated me fair, till you respect my big lips and my Brillo pad hair. I sat right there and I had a dream that one day at the playground our black and white children could play, but now they mad at me because I'm only getting greater, and they figured they would bring me down sooner or later. America used to hate us, but now we starting to like. They let me play a little basketball. I turned into Mike. It's like the spirit of the slave had taken over the arena, because I never played tennis, but now I'm Venus and Serena, and I never played golf, but now I'm Tiger Woods. So I can't even believe you when you tell me I'm good. I'm great. I came from the bottom to the top. Ask Farrakhan or Luther Vandross. Ask Barack, cause now I'm seeing things I always knew I'd see. A country I was so unwelcome is being led by me, baby. We came a long way. So in the midst of all that, you should barbecue on the lawn and paint the White House black, and I deserve to celebrate, cause I've been done so wrong, and I done fought so hard, and it done took so long. But now nobody can deny me the fact that I'm great, because now I'm the president of the United States, and that's greatness.
Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Proverbs 18:21. She calls you best friend. He does not know you, and yet she calls you stranger. Yet you plant seeds, not really watching them grow, to leave without any excuse or a foreign address. A relationship is suffering at the hands of your own. She calls you best friend. He does not know you, and she the one that matters. calls you stranger. Yet she put herself in the position to go through this process. Pain leaves her to marvel at you as if you were the Picasso of humans. Love just would not let her be. Love would not allow her to leave you alone. Love just would not allow her to walk away. Loving you more than she loves herself. Then you committed to plant another seed in her, David. And she could not accept the burden of lies committed under lust, love, and temptation to put together a family again. She calls you best friend. Yes. And he does not know you. And she the one that matters. Calls you stranger. Married, a few months in counting, you're playing house, fathering a child that does not belong to you. Bedtime stories meant for your own daughter, Jasmine. Nurturing words saying it will be okay, meant for Jasmine, David. Wiping away tears, placing your big arms around her to protect her, meant for Jasmine. You probably hug her 7 times in her 2 years of life. Holding hands while she looks at you and say, best friend, I love you. While your own seed is here looking at her saying, I love you, mommy. I love you. Too young to understand that it took 2 to make her. Too young to understand that you do not want him or her. You're being a permanent father figure in your girlfriend's daughter's life. Well, the correct term is mistress. But failing to be a real father in your own daughter's and son life, who stands 11 months old mirroring the image of you. So she sees you every single day. Yes, she sees you. Telling her you would kill her if any guy took your place. But yet, you took another man's place. She calls you best friend. He does not know you. And she calls you stranger. Put her heart on the table. Open it up and see if you can understand. If you do, then maybe your tears can cause her heart to beat again. She let the forgiveness comes in the form of letting her heart heal from the broken and ugly, to mend her soul by stitching up who she thought she was and let them dissolve to become renewed. Now she reads between the dressed words so the nakedness of closed voices does not undress her soul. When expectation lies, let the reality tell the truth. Your girlfriend daughter calls you best friend. Your son, David, does not know you. And Jasmine, your daughter, calls you stranger, while your girlfriend daughter calls you best friend.
Once again, you are tuned in to Art Meets Life here at WDRB Media, the voice of the community. I'm your host, LJ Bowens, and once again, we are sitting here with Jay Ward, phenomenal spoken word artist, playwright, slam coach, friend, brother, nerd, all of the above. Man wears many hats. So real quick, so that way it doesn't get away from you. I know you got social media. Let everybody know where they can find you at on social media.
All right, on Instagram, it's the letter J, Ward, W-A-R-D, 2030. On Facebook, it's just J Ward, J-A-Y-W-A-R-D. My website is the letter J, Ward, W-A-R-D, poetry, P-O-E-T-R-Y, .com, jwardpoetry.com.
All right, so before we end up into this show, man, I gotta ask. It ain't gotta be nothing long. It ain't gotta be major. You gotta bless us with a live poem, man. You gotta bless us with like a live poem.
What I should have done is brought on paper some of the new work that I have that I'm pretty excited about, and then I could just read it. But instead, I'll do an oldie.
Okay, they don't know that.
They don't know that. This is brand new, by the way.
Freshing.
If Willie Lynch were alive today, he wouldn't own slaves. He'd own a record label. Tell his A&Rs about the brand new future of business. Say the block is hot. Let them push on this hot city block. Let them preen on this hot auction block. Let them do their best ad-libs on a hot track with a block, hot. Where he used to talk about leaving the woman distraught by destroying the male image. Now he just composed brand new songs encoded with instructions like, call another man a vagina, talk about beating him up. Female genitalia, beat it up. See how thin the line between divinity and exorcism. Willie sees the broken 16-year-old boy as a curse. All that matters to him is the bottom line and the blessing. Bottom line, 2 million inmates in a $37 billion prison economy. Blessing, private corporations can pay inmates just 23 cents a day. Curse, Bobby Shmurda. Just caught a body about a week ago. Epic Records gave him up after a week or so. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Ratchet, thug, trap queen, chicken head, hoe, slime, gangster, killer, Nick. Language is a peculiar institution. Leads directly to the heart of a people. Translation, they call it a trap, but still make songs to brag about being in it instead of trying to get out. Translation, the New South is now Nike, Aramark, BP. Did you know during the BP oil spill, they actually employed inmates to help clean up the spill instead of out-of-work fishermen?
That's enough.
That's the teaser. That's
enough. That's enough. I applaud you. Everybody, y'all been listening to Art Meets Life. That was Jay Ward. If you're not following him on his social media, y'all need to do it now. Once again, what is your social media?
Jay Ward 2030 on Instagram, Jay Ward on Facebook, jaywardpoetry.com.
That's our show for today. Tune in next week. We're going to have some more phenomenal stuff coming for you guys. Once again, I'm your host, LJ Bowens, and you can always find me on social media at LJ Poetry, ELJA Poetry, across Twitter and Instagram, or you can go to my website, www.eljapoetry.com. Once again, this is Art Meets Life here at WDRB Media. Once again, we love y'all. Remember, purpose over popularity, and we are the voice of the community. Peace.